Welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okwemi Agbaje. Today we focus on the telecom sector. Telecoms has grown 30% year-on-year, quarter-on-quarter since 2001, sometimes as high as 35, 36%. It has delivered thousands of jobs. It has brought in 25 billion or more of investment. Government has earned license fees. But this challenge is still the main: quality of service, cost of service, and then we have this overdependence on the GSM, on the mobile phone. I have an expert, an industry insider, to discuss all of this with me and to look at the future of telecoms in Nigeria. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council, and I have a fantastic guest with me today. He's the Corporate Services Executive at MTN, Nigeria's leading telecommunications company. He's a lawyer. He's worked in the private sector law. He's worked in banking for almost a decade. And for the last decade or thereabout, he's been at MTN. Akinwale, good luck. You're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you very much.
Now, you are the only other famous good luck we have in Nigeria. How does that feel? Do you have any particularly interesting experiences with that name?
Well, I think people treat me very well everywhere I go.
Maybe you'll be our president someday.
I don't have politics.
Okay, so how did you get into telecoms? Let me start with that.
Well, let me say I've always had a strong interest in infrastructure, in utilities. And I recall that when I used to work in Now Merchant Bank, when I was leaving the services of the bank, I told our CEO then, Dr. Shamsuddin Usman, that I was going to work in the privatization of Nitel. And at that time, I absolutely had no idea. And I think about 18 months later, I was part of the team that started to prepare Nitel for privatization, and since then I've had a strong interest in telecommunications.
Fantastic. And how has it been? It must have been an interesting experience. Nigeria's telecom sector has been in a class of its own. If you look at the economic data, we see from 2001 grown 30% quarter year-on-year ever since. How has it felt like working in that high growth sector? Must be a bit of some high pressure.
Look, the pressure is something else, but I think also the satisfaction that the job and the industry gives is just unprecedented. It makes you jump out of bed in the morning, seeing the way the industry has evolved in Nigeria, the way technology has evolved across the world, and the fact that in the telecom space, Nigeria is at the cutting edge. We're at par with every other part of the world. You know, it gives a lot of satisfaction.
Let me challenge you on that straight away. Are we at par with every part of the world in terms of the way, the quality of our services, the pricing of our products? Would you say we're at par with other parts of the world?
Look, when I say at par, absolutely. And I say that with every sense of responsibility.
Okay.
We're at par in terms of technology deployment.
Yeah.
We're at par in terms of innovation in this industry. A lot of our market is really, really different. So a lot of things are being done in Nigeria for the first time in the telecom sector.
Wow.
There are very few places in the world where you have a big market like this that is 99.9% prepaid. There are very few places in the world where you have a big market like this and it's entirely dependent on mobile. So I think Nigeria has just proven that if people put their hearts to it, regulation is right, government policy is right, we can achieve a lot.
Let me backtrack. You went to King's College.
Yes, I did.
How do you, well, except for Bubi College, King's College is a good school, you know. But how do you feel about secondary education in Nigeria? Did you send your son or your own kids to King's College? Could you?
Well, I couldn't send any of my children to King's College because all my children are girls. So, but you know, I mean, having gone to King's College from 1977 to 1982, where the sector is now is not where we would like it to be. With reference to King's College in particular, I think that the old boys are doing quite a bit.
I know about that.
There's a lot of work going on. Over the last 3-4 years, you know, we've had very strong King's College old boys associations and led by very capable presidents. So, but you know, truth be told is that there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Let me ask you a final question in this first segment. How is it that lawyers, you another one, seem to be able to invade any part of the world, any sector, any industry, politics, banking, telecommunications, evidently, and do well? What's it about the practice of governance? I mean, Fashola and co. How do lawyers do it?
Well, I think that first of all, lawyers have the privilege of a lot of exposure. Right from like when you come out of law school, you know, you're dealing with different areas, different sectors, different kinds of people. I think it's probably one of the best opportunities to learn management, and you know, our training, our experience gives us a lot of versatility. So you find that a lawyer will swim anywhere. Just throw a lawyer in at the deep end, and a lawyer will swim.
And it's not a coincidence that Obama, maybe most of the world's leaders, and CEOs in many of the corporations are lawyers. Interesting. Let's take a short time out. We'll be back with Akinwale Goodluck. You're welcome back to the Policy Council. I'm speaking with Mr. Akinwale Goodluck. He's the Corporate Services Executive of MTN. He's speaking in his personal capacity right now, but he has fantastic insight into the telecom sector. Wale, let me ask you, 2001 we had this digital mobile license auctions, as it was called, what Nigerians call GSM. And we had MTN, Econet, later Glow. Talk us through how that, from that 2011 or 2001, how the telecom sector has been transformed. What happened? I mean, literally, what happened in terms of investment, in terms of operations, in terms of what happened?
Look, I think that, you know, the most important thing was the mindset of government and the political will to deliver a telecommunications sector for everybody, an affordable telecommunications sector, and also an opportunity for us to leapfrog and get to where the rest of the world, considering where we were coming from. If you look at us in 2001, we had perhaps 400,000 lines in Nigeria, very, very, very low penetration, and it was almost impossible to get a telephone line, be it mobile or a landline. With the right policies, with liberalization, regulation, empowerment of the regulator, transparency, we have seen Nigeria join the Committee of Nations who have achieved excellence in the telecommunications sector. Nothing gives investors greater confidence than a stable, predictable, transparent and fair regulatory regime. I would say with every iota of confidence that the regulatory regime in Nigeria has been very, very supportive of the industry. Policies by the federal government have also been very supportive. We got everything right to start with. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but it's important that we can keep our eye on the ball and ensure that the same principles of liberalization, empowerment of the regulator, and also keeping with industry trends as things progress. We're now seeing we're moving from a stage of heavy-handed regulation more to light-touch regulation. Let competition drive things in the market. The regulator should only intervene if there's market failure or a threat of market failure. And these are the things that have contributed to taking us to where we are today. I think that the voice battle largely is won. There's still issues around quality, and I think we'll talk about that later. But the next frontier definitely is in the data and digital space. Okay.
Now let me point out some specifics for the benefit of the viewers. I'm sure you are familiar with this data, but the interesting thing about telecoms is that Nigerian government didn't spend money. In fact, they got you guys to pay them hundreds of millions of dollars to get licenses to operate. Then they sold Nitel, even though there was a failed sale, but even on that failed sale, they collected over $100 million of deposit that was forfeited. Then all of you started doing the investment. And from the figures I've seen, since 2001, all of you guys have invested upwards of $25 billion into the sector. You've created jobs, thousands of jobs. You've actually paid government personal income tax, import taxes on equipment, all sorts of excise duties, billions of dollars. The government sold you guys 3G licenses again after a few years, got another $600 million to $700 million. In short, why do Nigerians oppose liberalization? Let me ask you that question.
Well, I'm not sure that Nigerians oppose liberalization, but I know that consistent with sub-Saharan Africa and a lot of the world, people always have issues with privatization of government assets. So what has happened with the telecom sector was more of liberalization.
It was not privatization.
And less of privatization.
Yeah.
The incumbent is still owned by the federal government of Nigeria. What has happened is that private investment, due to the liberalized policies, has come in and has been able to roll out a network.
Fantastic. We'll discuss the lessons for other sectors, how we can apply the model we've used in telecoms, which, by the way, since we're about to see deployed in power, and discuss why some of these things can work in other sectors. Let's take a time out. We'll be right back.
My name is Femi Dojai. Welcome to the New Lagos, where things are improving every day. I work on the island and live on the mainland. But that's no longer a problem. With improved roads, I get to work faster. Sometimes I even leave my car and use the BRT bus, which is comfortable, fast, efficient, and reliable. After a hard day's work, the nights and evenings are even more fun. The streets are better lit, and the city is more secure, so I can catch my phone in peace. I pay my taxes because I want to continue enjoying the good things a big modern city like our Lagos brings. So it's my taxes that makes them real. Have you paid your tax?
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back. It's the Policy Council. I'm talking with Akinwale Goodluck of MTN. He's been part of this sector that has seen telephones go from 400,000 to over 100 million in 10 years. What can we gain from the experience of telecoms in the other sectors that give us problems? Power, refining, petroleum products refining, in your view?
All right, if you ask me, Opoemi, I think that one, we need the same sort of political will and commitment that we saw drive the telecoms industry. And I think by and large with what we're seeing in power, the commitment is there, the political will is there also. Two, we need a stable regulatory environment. We need for the power regulator to be empowered. We need for the regulations to take cognizance of our environment. So for instance, you're giving people licenses, 10-year licenses for generating plants. In my opinion, you need to be starting at about 20, you know, to encourage investors to come in. You know, it's going to take a lot of time for people to see their returns. I think also that to avoid some of the pitfalls we've had in the telecommunications industry, government has to also be careful about managing expectations. I think there's a sense in the country that once the private investors take over the generating and distribution companies, we will start to have electricity 24/7. It's definitely not going to happen overnight. Deployment in power is significantly different from telecommunications, but ultimately, properly managed, it will deliver the objectives of government and meet and probably exceed all our expectations. I think also that right from now, government must put in place measures to protect the power investment. Government must remove the obstacles to right-of way and way leaves, things like that that would restrict investment and rollout. This is work that government must do. And like our industry also, which you can compare with power, because we also, power transmission, for instance, is very important. In telecoms, to transmission is very, very important. The ability for the GenCos to be able to evacuate the power they're generating is going to be critical to everything. And I think also that the federal government, the regulators, and all the people involved in power must be ready to be, they must be very pragmatic. If you have bottlenecks with transmission, then you must allow, local injection.
Yeah.
That's, so those are some of the things that, I'm no expert in power, but those are some of the things that off the top of my head.
Interesting. Okay, now, without doubt, telecoms has been a good story in Nigeria. It's anything that could take lines from 400,000 to 100 million without government spending a penny, all private sector investment is remarkable. But there are challenges. And many Nigerians, including occasionally Okwemi Agbaje, are not happy with the quality of service in the network. Let's talk about that. What's the problem? Are we the ones who are unrealistic about our expectations regarding quality of service? Or are there, what's the story around that?
Look, first of all, talking about quality of service, I'd like to first apologize to subscribers. No operator is happy to give a suboptimal quality of service. When quality is bad, it impacts our business. We suffer losses, revenue, and this is money put by investors. So their ultimate objective is, yes, create value, but you must create shareholder value. So we're not, nobody's happy, with the state of things. But there are challenges. And Nigeria is peculiar, if I may say so, with every sense of respect. I'll give an example. If you look at the UK, for instance, the UK probably has about a third of our population, or just slightly over a third of our population. The UK has one of the best landline systems in the world. By legislation, every house has had to have a phone line or access to a phone line, I think from as far back as the 40s or 50s in the UK. In Nigeria, the landline system infrastructure is non-existent completely. In the UK today, you have perhaps in excess between 65 and 70,000 base stations, serving a landmass that is significantly smaller than Nigeria. Today in Nigeria, we've got all the operators put together, we're probably about 20,000 base stations. So we're still a long, long way from the amount of infrastructure we need. Truth be told also that mobile technology is not really an inbuilt solution. It was designed for people on the move. So in other jurisdictions, your mobile, typically you use on the road, it was like a luxury. In Nigeria, because we don't have a landline system, there's total reliance on mobility. So you want to use your mobile in your house. Now, it's a technology that is dependent on radio spectrum. And, the sort of spectrums that we're using, there's an amount, that signal strength that you will have inside the house. So it means that in Nigeria, we need to saturate a little bit more than in other parts of the world. Operators are building, but there are also a lot of limitations to building, Okwemi. Today, in 2002, if you called us in MTN and said, look, there's a coverage gap in Surulere, at that time, it would take us 3 to 4 weeks to put up a base station, and it'll be carrying traffic and relieving congestion. If you make the same complaint today, it can take me as much as 18 months to fix the problem, because there are a lot of bottlenecks created by different agencies and organs of government, from the state to the federal to the local government level and to our community
Well, let's take a short time out and we'll continue this conversation. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. I'm talking to Akinwale Goodluck, and he's giving us some insight into the challenges in the industry. Wale.
So there's the problem of putting capacity. And I dare say that there's no operator who is able to commit every year the amount of money that has been approved by its board of directors to put infrastructure in the ground because of these bottlenecks. Now, after putting the infrastructure, for that infrastructure to provide services and relieve congestion, it must be available. We also have a big problem with sites being available. 10 years ago, if a site went down at 2 a.m., you could go out with engineers and fix and bring it back up, so that by the time people wake up in the morning, the problem is resolved. Today, in a lot of the country, because of security challenges, our mean time to repair sometimes instead of something being like 4 hours, sometimes we're talking 12 to 18 hours. We're also seeing a lot of vandalization for telecommunications infrastructure. Our transmission system, our fiber system is, I mean, sometimes in a month we suffer as many as 70 to 100 fiber cuts. Now, anytime there's a fiber cut,
are people stealing the equipment for economic reasons, or is it just pure vandalism?
There are those who steal fiber, who treat it with the same sort of, they have the same expectations as copper wire. So we have a lot of people who steal out of ignorance. We also have a lot of people who damage the fiber with a view to extorting money from operators. So we're working with the security agencies. But one thing we're also working with the federal government of Nigeria is to pass legislation that will declare telecommunications infrastructure as critical national infrastructure, so that it gives it the same sort of protection that is being given to pipelines and all that. And hopefully with that, with legislation, it's much easier for us to deal with this thing. So reality is that there are a lot of things that are outside our control. Operators are working very hard to resolve the issues around quality. But those issues, the quality will not get to where we would like until the underlying issues are resolved.
You mentioned that in the UK, for instance, or in most other countries, the landline is the core, while mobiles are supplements. What's the sector doing about landlines?
Well, I think that, you know, with the evolution of the industry, it will not be economically viable for anybody to roll out a landline system in Nigeria today.
Wow.
Because mobility gives you quick and immediate access. If I wanted to bring a landline to a street, just to get right of way, to dig, put a cable, copper or fiber into every home, in Nigeria today, that would be impossible. A lot of the fiber and landline infrastructure has been done in most economies 40, 50, 60 years ago. So for anybody to do that now will mean cutting up the roads, you know, and you know, it's very ugly when you're laying fiber in the ground. So I don't think that, I think that we have to work with mobility and use that to bridge the gap.
Interesting. And then you implied then, or did you express then, that the future, the main challenge now is data. But Nigerians still have problems with data, severe problems. How do you think that would change going forward?
Well, I think that we need the same sort of commitment by government, by policymakers, by the regulators that saw the voice, saw the winning of the voice battle. We need that same sort for data. We need release of spectrum. I think that spectrum, a lot of it ought to be given to people who have the biggest reach. So, for instance, the big four operators. Nigeria needs to very quickly begin to allocate the digital dividend. And these are things that will definitely take data to the next level. Government has issued a national broadband policy, and I think Mr. President inaugurated the National Broadband Council recently. These are all steps in the right direction, but it's important that government continues to allow private sector to drive this.
So my final question. So what should Nigerians expect, in your view, over the next few years in terms of voice, data, cost, quality, all of it?
Look, data will definitely get better.
Okay.
So your downloads will be much, much faster. There will be a lot more that will be done online. Broadband will change the way we work, the way we play, the way we socialize. A lot of businesses will now go online. Networks will provide revenue assurance, so you don't have to set up shops everywhere. You can do all your business online. Voice quality will also continue to improve. The sophistication of services, sophistication of equipment, of terminal equipment, telephones, tablets, we will continue to do more and more. So I think that the future is very, very exciting, and Nigeria will be at the top of it.
Fantastic. Well, very good picture, and I'm sure that Akinwale Goodluck knows what he's talking about. Thank you very much for coming. We'll be right back. Nigerians need to learn the right lessons from the transformation that we've achieved in telecoms. Private sector investment works once it is a business. Liberalization, deregulation, they are not evil concepts. They're concepts designed to free a market for investment and transformation. Telecoms have shown it. I think we will see the same thing in power over the medium to long term. We need to apply those lessons also in the oil sector, to our refineries, and to the downstream petroleum sector, and to gas and other sectors. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.